mic. Also, Riff, introduce yourself.
Sorry, to baju jap. I saw everyone like pretty like dressed up. I'm like, okay, maybe I should too. Hi, I'm Riv. I'm 18. I'll be 19 this year. I run the Meyer movement, and I'm also affiliated with Undi 18 under Undi Sarawak, Senate 18, and recently I joined Mixi Solidarity as a provisional tech officer. Yeah.
Very amazing. Okay, so let's go.
Hi, my name is Celeste. 16 going 17, and I own like an NGO called Youth for the Future. We're not really like active on Instagram because apparently statelessness is a very touchy issue. So yeah, that's like, and I'm part of the International Women Network Committee where we like plan International Women's Day event and stuff like that. Yeah.
Very amazing. Also, later during the forum, I'm going to be very chill, so just feel free to interrupt me anytime, and you guys can talk to each other as well. So don't worry about it, lah. Like just interrupt me anytime you want, okay?
Sharon, have you introduced yourself?
I did.
Okay,
Everyone
good.
knows me. I'm Sharon. I'm going to be moderator.
Hey everyone.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Hey everyone. Nice to meet y'all. Thanks for making time today. Hope we can get some good chats out of this today. So good to hear. Excited to read about you guys in your articles and your research and your work that's done so far. So it was very inspiring, and we're looking forward to chat with y'all more today. Yeah.
Pravin, Rifki, miss your whole speech lah.
Oh, what?
Fine,
Pravin was waxing poetry about you, and then you just left. Very sad.
It's okay. I'll send a separate note to Riff later. I'll text you, man.
Okay.
Nice. Pravin, how do you feel about the amateur activism workshop? How do you feel about your presentation?
It was okay. I watched it again. I think the last rehearsal was like the peak, and then today was just like I think the audience was like, oh shit, like we have that.
It was good, lah. It was very good, very good. How it paid off.
Yeah.
Okay. Kan? Is anyone nervous? Celeste, are you nervous?
A little, yeah.
Okay, it's okay. Very chill, very chill. Izana, you nervous? Is Izana here? Izana! Hello.
She actually left the meeting.
Come back.
Sharon, what did you do?
What?
What did you do, Sharon?
I didn't do anything.
There she
Too
is.
nervous, so she left.
Ayo. Zana, are you here? Shit.
What?
Someone contact and check if she is okay. Is Anna everything good? Okay.
Okay, can you guys hear me better now?
You keep talking. Keep talking.
Can you guys hear me like better now?
I think so. I think it's okay. Yeah, I think it's good.
I think later when we're like, yeah. No, later like when we're, I think discussion like it's there's like we'll all go on mute except for the speaker alone. Yeah. So like whenever, yeah.
Zana, you nervous? Okay. Okay, good, good, good. Chill, chill, chill. Good luck, guys. All right, so welcome everyone to Mrs. Solidarity's forum. If not us, who? So if you're from the Early Amateur Activism Workshop, then welcome back. And if you're new, thank you so much for coming. Today we have three brilliant, very accomplished speakers from very different advocacy backgrounds, and they're here to present insight from their own activism journeys and break it down into actionable, approachable steps for all aspiring activists out there, and perhaps inspire you to start your own movements as well. So I'm Sharon. I'm going to be moderating today. I'm the co-founder and executive officer of Mrs. Solidarity, and I'm going to let our lovely speakers introduce themselves. So tell us your name, your age, and your organization, and starting with Rifki.
Hello, hi. My name is Rifki. I'll be 19 this year. I'm currently running the Maya movement as I co-founded with my dear friend Izana. I'm also affiliated with Undi 18 as part of their Senate 18 campaign, as well as Undi Sarawak. And recently, I joined Mrs. Solidarity as a provisionary tech officer.
Awesome. Okay, Izana, can you go next?
Hi, my name is Izana Azrin. I'm 19 years old, and I'm currently the co-founder of Maya Movement, and I'm also part of Senate 18 as well. And I'm the public relations manager for this NGO called Wolf. Yeah.
Nice. Power couple. All right. Celeste, can you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, so my name's Celeste, turning 17 this year. I'm a youth activist and founder of my nonprofit organization called Youth for the Future, and I'm also the first Girl Up president for Malaysia, which is a United Nations initiative. And lastly, I'm a Malaysian rep for the International Networks Committee for Women, which is basically where we plan International Women's Day event. And last year we had about like 1 million people attending, so yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so we're gonna start with a very rapid fire question. How and when did you first become involved in activism? So Celeste, why didn't you go first?
Yeah, for sure. So I first got involved in activism, like, I think when I was 13. It's really hard to tell because like, I was always like talking about these issues on social media and stuff like that. But I think I really started when I was 13, and that's when I founded my nonprofit organization. And how it really came about was, you know, it was like a crazy idea. I sat on my living room and with crayons and like papers, and I just like drew up a plan. And yeah, that was how it came about.
That's amazing. Riff, why don't you go next?
Cool. I guess I started getting more, well, I feel like activism is sort of something a lot of people my age tend to do, especially when it comes to individualism and activism, right? We sort of talk online and things like that. But when I actually started getting into activism and being affiliated with organizations, it was actually last year. It was, I firstly newly joined Senate 18. And I guess from there, the passion just kept flooding in more and more and more, and, you know, burnout, but, you know,
no.
all the good stuff.
I see. That's incredible as well. Izana, why don't you share your story with us next?
Hi. Yeah. I'm so sorry. This probably sounds very repetitive, but my involvement in activism also is very similar to Risky, because I only started getting affiliated to like organizations as well, and properly like doing like proper work relating to advocacy starting like last year, when Risky and I were like Risky and I just like after a Senate 18 meeting, we were just like, oh yeah, we should totally start Maya, because like it seems like a pretty cool idea. Like there were a lot of like issues that we needed to fix.
I see. Well, I mean, those are really incredible startup stories. I love Celeste with her crayons. Okay, so we're gonna start off with a very beginner's question. So what are your organizations up to right now? You know, what are the activities that you guys are currently focusing on, and what are your future plans? Rifki, you can start first.
All right. So for Maya right now is currently under hiatus because there were a lot of organizational issues, especially in relation to leadership positions. So we kind of place ourselves in hiatus. But as for what my organization does is that we advocate for education reform in Malaysia. Obviously, education reform is a huge chunk of activism, and it has so many facets in it. So one of the main things that we sort of focus on is amplifying and championing student voices, as well as attempting to spark public discourse when it comes to education reform in Malaysia. So yeah, that's currently what Maya is.
I see. Izana, you want to add on anything?
I think Rifki pretty much like said yeah.
Okay, great. Celeste, what about you?
So my organization is called Youth for the Future, and what we mainly focus on is eliminating the gender gap in education, because sadly, if a family has to choose whether or not to send a child to, whether their daughter or their son, to schools, they will most likely invest in education in the future in the son and marry their daughter off. So we plan to like eliminate the gender gap in education. So a lot of this like is related to education, like what mentioned, and I think that's like the main root of why activism exists and stuff like that too. And in terms of our like what we're planning in our future plans, we're planning to host like a big like hackathon this year if COVID allows, which I hope we can do. It's for like underprivileged girls, and we're going to teach them how to like construct like business plans, how to pitch their ideas, and just generally like inspire them to do something for themselves and their future instead of just dropping out of school. Yeah.
Damn, big plans. Potential collaboration between Meyer and Celeste in the future. Okay, so we're going to get into the real questions now. So starting off, I'd like to know a little bit about, your journey of advocacy. So what was your takeoff point for starting to want to start this movement? The moment where your intentions and convictions really turned to action and reality. Let's hear from Celeste.
Yeah, okay. So lots of people always ask me this, and I love telling the story again and again because, I was always passionate about gender equality, like since like I was in, I think, grade 7. It was because I came from a really sexist school, and a lot of the male, they like to act so alpha-like, and they're always shouting at us female and stuff like that. So that had like a big impact on me too. But when I was like 13, I was doing an internship, a journalism internship, and one of the male colleagues asked me like what I wanted to do in the future, and my 13-year-old ambitious self immediately like said like, oh, you know what, I really want to be the Prime Minister of Malaysia, or
Yes.
do something related in politics. And then like the entire office went quiet, and they're like, maybe you should consider something more woman-like, something that's more soft on you. And that really like angered me because women are so much more than just what we are seen to do. We are so much we are capable of amazing things that go out of what society thinks we are meant to do. And so I realized that if I wanted to empower the women in my community, it started with education. They needed to get proper education, proper syllabus, textbooks, and stuff like that. And so the whole Youth for the Future idea came from the belief that 25% of our population are youths, but we are ultimately 100% of the future. Yeah.
I see. That is a brilliant story. Thank you so much. Izana, why don't you go next?
Yeah, so basically the whole reason why like I think Rifki and I started Maya is because I don't know if this is a bit of a far stretch to say, but like high school really gave us a lot of trauma. I think it was also that was why we found like we found that there were like a lot of like inadequacies when it comes to like the syllabus as well. They weren't teaching like proper stuff that were actually needed to be taught to us, like things that are important, like for example, how to do your taxes, or like how the system currently works, how the government system works, why it's important to vote, why learning about citizenship is also important. But we also think that aside from that, even if it is mentioned in like, for example, your civic textbook or whatnot, right? People just don't seem to find it like really, really like interesting, because I think also of the way that it's displayed inside the textbook as well. But secondly, it's also I think what caused the tipping point for me was the fact that I always had like a lot of mental health issues in high school. So I always went to the counseling I went to the counseling teachers to like tell them how I felt, what problems I was going through. And at the end of the day, I always find that they would tell other teachers about what I was going through. And I just didn't feel okay with that because I feel like that was pretty unethical of them. So then from then on, I thought I was like, wow, like all of this, like I think all of those things combined make me feel like I should probably do something to help future like prevent future students from going through the same thing, and also to help them increase their critical thinking skills as well, right? Because I think that high schools also don't really encourage, don't really have a very conducive environment for students to be able to think for themselves because of the current existing syllabus. It's made to teach students to think a certain way. It's like you're molding your students, you know. And I would say that's not very good for students currently, because students always need to be taught to have like critical thinking skills, to be able to think outside the box. Like, why is the government doing this? Why are they like that, and stuff like that, right? But also, like, thirdly, I also think that sex education is super important, and that was something that was not taught in high school as well. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. I think that was pretty much all of this stuff. Rifki and I were just talking. We were like, oh, you know what? Yeah, we're not gonna let other people go through this. We're not gonna have we're not gonna have like a younger version of Izana and Rifki go through all of the high school trauma, you know, all over again. Really sucked.
Thank you. Thank you for illuminating the inadequacies of our Malaysian school system. And thank you for sharing your story. Rifki, can you go next?
Cool. I mean, I feel like Izan and I share a lot of reasons why we actually started Mire. It has a lot to do with our personal experiences when it came to the schooling system and generally how government schools operate. But it was also a lot of external reasons as well. Because this discussion that we had actually happened the first time we joined our first activist or organization, which is Undi 18, and we, like, through a lot of discussions, we realized that, you know, fundamentally a lot of issues in this world derives from the fact that a lot of individuals are not educated enough or are not progressive enough in the way that our education functions. And that happens to be a huge problem and a gap that needs to be filled. Like, for example, the Malaysian education system doesn't update itself as frequent as it should. And even when there are like updates or so, those updates are either very last minute planning, or two, still is not able to tackle the problem that a lot of individuals face. So things like, why is your vote important? Why should you vote? How do you empower people to be good citizens? How do you make taxes? How do you file a resume? And all these like different intricacies are not taught within the education system, right? And through constant revisions, it still is not enough. So not just the reasons that Izana talked about, but there are also a lot of external reasons why we started off Mire as well. Yeah.
I see. So I see that both of you kind of have an ideal in your minds of what a true Malaysian school system should look like. And I think if there's time, then I'd like to touch on that more later. Okay, so if that's okay, let's move on to the next question. So you guys talked about what your organizations are currently up to, but what are the general activities that you do in your advocacy? And I want to know, which of those do you deem the most effective in realizing change? Let's start with Izana.
Yeah, okay. So what Mire basically does a lot is that we do, I think our most important aspect is content creation, because a lot of the ways, what we try to do as much as possible is because we realize that a lot of these things, like for example, learning about sexism in education, isn't accessible in the current education system right now. So what we try to do is, and we also realize that education reform is going to take a very, very long time. So we might as well take it into our own hands to sort of like create content that is easy for students or just youth in general, everyone to try to access. So we do content creation, release articles, we release graphics. We try to do webinars. We try to make people interested in in stuff, right? Like for example, the Malaysian Education Blueprint as well. We try to get students and I think everyone to be invested into learning those kind of topics, so they're more educated about it. But yeah, thanks. I think Rifki wants to add on some more.
Okay, let's have Rifki add on.
Definitely I feel like content creation is one of our most powerful tools, and I feel like Mrs. Solidarity can also say the same, because I feel like a lot of organizations, youth organizations specifically, understand how important it is to educate a bunch of Gen Zs with really short attention spans. So creating infographics on like a lot of like current and contemporary issues is something really powerful and a bit underlooked, I guess, when it comes to traditional activism. So Meyer focuses on that, but moreover, we actually wanted to do a lot more. So we were planning a hackathon, a public policy competition, a few webinars down the road, but again, it's very, very hard to do like actual groundwork when COVID is still high and alive, right? So perhaps when, February 14th or whatever, right? I don't know people are like, talking about that, but like when COVID blows over, perhaps you can see more work being done on the ground.
Same.
Yeah.
I think Mrs. Solidarity shares that sentiment as well. Celeste, how about you?
I think with like what Izana and Rifki said, it's like so important because like content creating, lots of people are always saying, where can I get resources on this? How can I learn more about that? And it's always, directing them to the right Instagram account. So lots of people are also saying that collectivism, so like reposting stuff on Instagram isn't really activism, but I think that, any good activism is something that brings effective change, inspires and motivates and pushes people into uncomfortable thinking. So whether it is just posting on your story, advocating for the issue, I think it still goes a long way because you are sharing the information. For me personally, I think anything that involves the community is effective change. One thing that I did, like I think last March, before like COVID was a big thing, me and my team hosted like a donation, like a clothing drive for the stateless community, and we were really impressed by how many people actually showed up and donated clothes, because I had like a few friends who generally did not care about the issues at all, so they were always blindsided towards the topics and they were ignorant. But then, however, when we did brought up the topic, they instantly came in and helped out, lent a hand, which was, it was really, we were so in awe by it because we felt as if we were able to inspire others around us to take charge, which is what our main objective is, to, mobilize the youth into change making and making them actually take action. Yeah.
I see. I really like that answer, that the most effective kind of work is one that involves the community. I really like that. Okay, so touching on target audiences, actually, that both of you have, all of you have been mentioning. So Celeste, your organization focuses on youth, Rifki and Izana as well. So I want to know, how do you guys try to reach out and to your target audiences? What are your plans in operationalizing it, and making sure that your movement is reaching to its intended demographic? Let's start with Rif this time.
I think here's one thing about youth activism now. It's a lot different when you produce content compared to that of traditional activism, because if you are planning to target young individuals who are most probably within the Gen Z bracket, right? You have to do a lot of work in recognizing that there's a certain form of language and visual outlook that this generation is after, which is, certain aesthetics, certain words you have to use to capture someone's attention enough to look through all the Instagram slides and things like that. So I think most important action in operationalizing all of this is content creation, but ensuring that your content creation is associated or at least related to your target audience. But more importantly is to be inclusive in your content as well, which is, your colors, your fonts, the size of things. Like if things are too small, people can't see. That's, people with like reading disabilities probably can't see that small too. So be inclusive is something I would really champion as well in operationalizing this entire thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a super good point, making sure that content is accessible. I think that's something that not many advocacy pages concentrate on as well. Izana, what would you add on to that?
So I'd also like to say that I think it's pretty important to also talk to the students, like not, I mean, you can't really be there on site at school, but I think it's pretty important to just like, check up on the students once in a while, talk to your juniors, or like talk to, like interact with youth, and then try to get their perspectives, right? Because what I think is really important is that we must realize that like we don't really know what I think, yeah, like, we're youth movement, so obviously we've experienced this stuff, but since I'm not in high school anymore, and I don't think anyone in Meyer is in high school anymore, so it's pretty important to realize that like we're not there on site to understand fully what the students go through anymore. So it's really important to interact with them, ask them what they're going through, what their opinion is on certain new rules that the government has, or what they think about the education system. I also think in order to like fully understand what the youth go through is also, I think, keep up with current trends. Like Rifki said, try to like, be more diverse, try to be more like youth friendly, because obviously we don't want to seem like super formal or not. It won't really like attract youth to like read our content and also like read our articles, right? Because what 14-year-old would want to read like a Instagram post that looks really boring with no color, or it doesn't have any like super funny slangs. Yeah, so it's pretty important to like get down there and then try to relate to them as much as possible.
That's really super good advice. Really good tips for online activism in general. I also really like that you said, listen to the people who are being affected by the actual problem instead of assuming. Celeste, why don't you share?
So I'm not on the content side of Instagram, so I'm not
That's
really
fine.
sure what about that expect. But I say like we host lots of like volunteer opportunities for the youth to get involved, because there are like in places like KK, it's really hard to find where and how you can help and get involved. So what we aim to do is just open up lots of opportunities for people to get involved, and just listening to their opinions too, like what Izana said, is very important, because you don't know what they're going through, and everyone goes through something different, and just listening to them in general. Yeah.
Oh, could I ask a little bit more what you mean by opening up opportunities in a concrete manner, I guess?
Yeah, so for Youth for the Future, we're always involved with the stateless community, and a few of the activities that we do are like tutoring the stateless kids English, science, maths, alongside with tutoring the teachers, because the teachers then need to tutor the students. And besides this, we also work on making a syllabus for all the stateless schools. So this syllabus will then be affecting like several different schools, so it's one of the big projects that we're working on too. And from this, we need lots and lots of hands. And I think like previously we also distributed like menstrual hygiene products and stuff like that, in which lots of volunteers came in and helped too. Yeah, so just asking people for hand and them helping volunteering and just tutoring.
I see what you mean. Okay, that's really good. Thank you so much for sharing. I want to touch back on online activism for a bit, because there's a really huge concern that's related to content creation and activism, which is that it creates echo chambers. All right, so for the audience, some context, what it means is that, when you're putting out progressive content, the people who you mostly end up attracting to your content are people who already agree with it in the first place. So the content doesn't get to its intended audience. It doesn't engender change. It just kind of creates a silo of people who agree and not along with each other. So how do you guys deal with that? Especially Rifki and Izana, since that's your main form of activism. Izana, why don't you go first?
So I have thought about this a lot, and we do realize that it's inevitable for echo chambers to be there, because obviously it's very hard to like bring up a new topic or discuss something new unless someone brings it up or thinks about it, right? So what Meyer tries to do as best as possible is that we try to diversify our content. So try to do as much things as possible. So for example, if we are like an education, a movement that focuses on education reform, it is important to talk about education, but we also think that it's important to touch other things as well, to try to get people to listen to us and try to like break out of the echo chamber, right? For example, we don't only talk about the Malaysian education blueprint, but we also should be talking about arts in education, or like gender and sexism in education. So we try to bring up new topics for these people who follow us to see, right? But also secondly is also try to bring try to do as much activities as possible to try to get opinions from all sides. So one thing that we did in the past, like Meyer, okay, why do I say past? It's so long ago. It was just last year. We tried to we did a webinar with YD Ling Wei to like try to understand what she is trying to do on behalf of like students, or in what students can do during the pandemic, get her advice. So we get like different perspectives, but what we also try to do as much as possible, like I think Rifka and I planned with our other like Meyer members as well, was that we wanted to like be more interactive with students as well. So you try to get opinions from all sides, so it doesn't like, it's not an echo chamber. There's no like discussion just bouncing around in like just one room just like that. So we try to diversify things, right? Yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
I think that's really great. Talking about different aspects of the issue to mobilize different groups for the same cause. That's a super good form of advice. Rifki, what about you?
I think I will. So, like Kaizen has talked about this issue before, right? At the whole issue of echo chambers, and I agree, right? So, echo chambers will happen indefinitely. The issue is how do you mitigate the impact of that echo chamber towards your content. So what Meyer tries to do, aside from just diversifying content, is that we try to diversify our team. So first and foremost, it came to my attention like a few months after starting Meyer that apparently Meyer is the only education movement that actually has students leading the entire thing. So that's very important, right, to have some diversification in that aspect. But more importantly is also diversification in the aspect of the sexes, of the races, and things like that. So very important is to ensure that your team is fully diversified, because if your team is more diversified, you are more likely to hear more nuanced opinions. And the amount of times that Meyer has had like very long discussions over and over about the types of content we should put out has been, I don't know, I can't even count them all out, but like it's a lot. And I feel like that's really important to always diversify who you are talking to when you want to release content. As for externally though, when people kind of engage with your content, I think it's important to sort of frame your content properly as well, right? You don't want to sort of impede on people's beliefs and things like that. You are attempting to educate individuals anyway. So the point of your infographics should not be to call and shame out people, but what you should do is walk people through what that certain process is like what is sexism, how does that affect people step by step, and people are more likely to change that way rather than feel very turned off or very repulsed with your content, which is very, very important in activism if you do want to get support of both sides.
I like that. That's a really good form of advice as well. Celeste, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so for me, I'm really open about myself on my Instagram account. I really don't care. If I'm on my period, I will say I'm on my period. I'm just generally really open about my body. And some people, they don't like the fact that I'm open. They don't like the fact that I'm really proud that I'm menstruating. I'm proud that I'm confident with my own body. So, of course, there will always be echo chambers happening. However, I think, from my side, I think it's not worth getting into these arguments with people like them, because they're not gonna. Some of them, they just won't change their mindset. I've had like countless talks with people for hours and hours, and it's a waste of energy and time. Instead, do something productive with your time, and bring more change instead of actually wasting these energy and time with them. So if eventually they will come around. However, just do what you're doing, go on, keep doing it. And yeah.
I see. That's a really good perspective as well. I've never considered that, just mobilizing your current supporters rather than constantly trying to reach to the other side. I also really like Riff's advice talking about, paying attention to the vernacular, speaking their vernacular, being empathetic towards your audience as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next question, which is, how do you measure the success of your movement? Or or to frame it better, the impact of your advocacy, besides, online reach, followers, likes, etc. Let's start with Riff this time.
I think impact measurement is really difficult because I really can't think of a way how you can measure social change aside if there was like a revolution happening. So that's first. But I feel like the closest thing a lot of organizations, and I'm not sure about Celeste, but like to me, how I sort of measured our impact is to see how far our message has been reached out, right? So obviously, if we're putting aside online metrics, I think a very good measurement is to know that people, especially other organizations, hear you, they understand you, and they want to collaborate with you. But what's more important, I think, in sort of sending out that waves of message is that if people are always talking about the same thing that you brought up, like for example, when Meyer sent a press statement standing side to side with students who are being charged like full fees when they're doing online studies, right? That statement was everywhere in like people's confession pages. We found in KLS, in KDU, and even in public unis. So I feel like that's the closest thing we have to measuring our impact, is if students really feel very passionate about the same issues and want to amplify those same voices. Yeah.
I see. That's great. Inciting conversation, making sure that the message is alive, and widening your network. That's really good as well. Izana, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, another way that we try to measure our success is also what Meyer tries to do is we try to implement a system where we have goals, like monthly goals, or maybe like a yearly goal. So the amount of success that we have is how many goals that we've actually reached that year. So we try to track like what we do, right? So we don't like get left behind, or we don't like impede our productivity. Sort of. Yeah.
What kind of goals would that be? Would you care to share?
Yeah. So obviously, at the most top there would be education reform, but I think one of and also syllabus reform as well. But that's one of our huge main goals. But another goal will also be to reform the counseling systems in the education system currently. But I think as for smaller goals, what we try to do, like an example of smaller goals that we have is maybe to like try to host workshops, is to also host like hackathons, because we also feel like goals shouldn't be too big, or it shouldn't be too like extravagant for you to not be able to achieve it, right? So maybe even small stuff, like try to have like meetings, try to have as much as discussions as possible, and try to regroup. Those are like smaller goals, because I think that success isn't like something super big, it's small stuff as well that you achieve along the way.
I see. I like you talking about syllabus reform. Actually, like Celeste's goals and you guys' goals are actually pretty similar. I'd love it if we could talk more about that a little bit later if you have time. Celeste, what about you? How do you measure the success of your advocacy?
I think like from my personal experiences, success isn't in like activism, like vocabulary, because, we're always like, our goal, is to get 100 more kids to school by the end of the month, to improve the state of this school. And then once we succeeded, we've just received news that 50 of them dropped out, So it's always like, oh my God, there is never a word like success in our dictionary, because it's always like another social issue will come up and then we have to focus on that. So it's always like an up and down thing, one day we succeed, the other day we just have to try extra hard. But I guess in terms of success, it's more about how many people we've impacted and how many people we've inspired to take action to, not just like how many people's life we changed, but how many people we were able to, mobilize and encourage them and empower them into the role of activism. Whether if it's like a very small step, it's still, a step towards the right change and movement. Yeah.
That's so nice. Yeah. I really like that mindset, and it's true that activism is not a journey that has an end goal. It's something that carries into the next generation, the next and the next. So getting people to join your cause is already a really big success in of itself. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to ask another question. So what were some challenges that you guys faced when building your movement? And following up with that, what advice can you give to other activist groups who, are facing the same challenges and handling their own organizations? So let's start with Celeste this time.
I think one of the biggest challenge I had is because my organization focused on the stateless part, which is, as I said, again, it's a very touchy issue. I even remember driving downtown and a lot of refugees and just illegal immigrants were all running through the streets because of the police chasing them. So it's very touchy here. And lots of the challenges we face is people telling us, these kids do not have the right for education because they're illegal and there's stuff like that. And because of that, I get lots of negative comments, people saying how it's the wrong thing to do, calling me a feminazi and stuff like that. So definitely negative comments are something that I had to deal with. And I have to admit, it was first really painful. However, I did grow from it, and I did know that, I'm doing the right thing and I don't care. I don't give up about what they're saying, and I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. And another thing I had struggled with is also people saying that you have to stop being so ambitious. These situations, we have no power over them. However, I believe that is false. As youth, we have actually a lot of power. We can even move mountains if we want to. We just need to collect our voices, unite in one, and actually pour in all ounce of energy and just towards the cause. So yeah, definitely negative comments was one of the most big challenge I had to face. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Riff, why don't you go next?
Cool. I think the biggest challenge that I face, I feel like Izana can also sympathize, is a lot to do with just creating the organization and knowing what is the best workflow to work with. Because we have to understand that when you create an organization, NGO, most of the people that work for you are often volunteers, and volunteers contribute in accordance to whatever capacity that they can. So I feel the biggest challenge for me and Izana was definitely figuring out the most okay organizational structure to work with, and also volunteer manage everybody, because it's very hard lah. But I feel like as co-founders and leaders in the organization, you should be able to take up leadership positions and take up work that people cannot do. As for what advice I would give to other activist groups and own organizations, I would just like to echo what Celeste says. I think it's true. Collective power does lie directly in the hands of youth individuals, right? We, as she said, we can move mountains if we want to. The moon will explode if we believe it hard enough. I'm telling you, Gen Z power mindset is strong, and the only advice I can give is that if you believe in something and if you really, really want to fight for it, by all means, just do it. Just do it. I know it might sound stupid. I know it might sound very unorganized and unplanned, all that stuff, right? But that's literally how every other organization starts. Messy as hell. But over time, you will learn. And when you learn, I'm sure you'll have some impact or a lot of impact on a lot of people's lives. Yeah.
I love that. That's really, really important. Izana, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'll add on. So I also want to echo what she said. Yeah, I think it is a lot of ideas sound pretty crazy at first, because when Rifki and I wanted to start Mire, and then I was like, no way, that sounds crazy. We're not going to start our own organization. That sounds crazy. And then Rifki was like, oh, I already created a group chat. I was like, no way. You just have to, Rifki stressed, you just have to do it. You have to start it. And if you don't start it, then either no one will or someone else will. And I also think that I think it does sound a bit crazy, starting these ideas, for example, trying to achieve things like education reform. You have to acknowledge that it's something that you may not be able to achieve in many, many years. We can acknowledge that we probably won't be able to achieve education reform even after we die. But it's important to start the initiative to be able to inspire other people to do the same thing, right? To be able to have other people start their own organizations and to try to make change. Because we realize that if we're not going to step up and we're not going to do or say something about it, then like it's just going to be that we're gonna have like unresolved issues. And I think that's a problem with like a lot of like uh that's like a problem with like a lot of issues in society currently, is because like the fact that like no one really picked it up, or they were either too scared to like pick up the issue and talk about it or like speak up about it. That's why like it sticks around, but yeah, I think
Mm.
that's it. Because I don't know, I'm not gonna say anything else because I'm not sure, because the other two really good. Yeah.
No, your input was really
Okay.
good as well.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
activism is really, it's probably less a matter of knowledge and capability and more so courage and initiative. And it's so important that like initiatives are really important because more often than not, people really want to do something, but they have no idea where to start. So yeah, I agree. Getting over that how daunting it is, and just going ahead and do it. And yeah, as Celeste said, like keeping a really good mindset throughout and staying true to your cause. So yeah, thank you for sharing. Now we're going to briefly discuss your individual target causes, and just share with us your thoughts. Okay, so let's start with gender inequality, right? Something that both organizations target in your organizations. So, Celeste, how does your organization, Girl Up for Change, how does it target gender equality?
Yeah, definitely for sure. So Girl Up for Change was actually like first started back in I think July, and we all met like virtually from Girl Up Summit. So none of us has actually like met each other like face to face, and we've only seen each other through screens, which is crazy to even think about because now we're doing an organization together, virtual meetups, and a range of like different activities. So every Wednesday we host a Wednesday life changing series in which we have a different guest every week, whether they're a business entrepreneur, activist, young change makers, political science major, or anything at all. In doing so, we hope to like mobilize the youth with resources and gently just raise awareness on gender equality. And currently, we have major projects coming up in which we're hoping to flip schools in Malaysia and Madagascar. So that's like a big project that we're planning right now, and hopefully it will go well. But yeah, that's what we're currently up to.
Thank you. Riff, what about you?
I think for gender equality, I think the more sort of appropriate question to ask would be like, what is the correlation to begin with, right? I think I'm not going to mansplain this. I'm going to let Izana take over this question.
Izana, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, like I think like a way to like correlate like, gender inequality and education is also to realize like the structural barriers that exist currently in society. Is that like sexism makes the patriarchal view of like how education should only be accessible to men because higher education can lead to better jobs, right? Which seemingly only men are supposed to take up. That like I think like it's you have to as a society also acknowledge that like the big structural barrier as well, right? But I also think like it's the smaller stuff as well that people don't really notice. Like for example, maybe like microaggressive sexism in school and in the education system as well. For example, in the current like I don't know if it's the current text or not, but like one of the Form 4 textbooks for Pendidikan Jasmani and Kesehatan basically said that like the way women dress was the cause of them getting raped. And to hear that like as a student would obviously be very triggering, right? And it would like it sort of like teaches it sort of like creates a narrative that to teach like younger students in school that like the way that women dress causes them to be raped, which it's not true, because those kind of things that are like put inside the education system is what causes these adults or like these men to grow up and think that they can like take over or have right over women, right? Like yeah. So that was like I think that's like a big correlation. gender inequality and education system. But yeah,
Okay, thank you
I
for
think Rishi can also speak for as well because yeah, I think he would have more to add on as well.
Riff, go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, I think what Izana says is completely true. I think the way our education system is structured has also been structured in the way how the patriarchy is, right? We conform people within certain structures, we continuously empower those same structures, and we don't seek to change the structures. Meyer actually covered this for the entire month on what is like the sexist problem in our education system. And few of our findings were not only like perpetuating stereotypes and beliefs and narratives, but it has a lot to do with what is expected of a woman once they finish their education. What is their professions after that? What is expected of them, and what is more likely going to happen, right? Especially in STEM education, it's something that we touched on quite a lot because women in STEM is a very controversial thing when it comes to sexist men, apparently. So that's something to consider. So I think the conversations about this is very important. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Celeste, I think you've also mentioned receiving sexist treatment in your own schools. Would you like to share any of your experiences?
Yeah, so in my class there was always a group of boys that felt superior and that they had to always pick on girls. And I remember like a few times, I'm always saying like I'm really ambitious, so I want to go to like good schools, be like the prime minister of Malaysia and stuff like that. And I think there was like this one period of time where I was always bullied for having ambitious dreams, and these it's always this group of boys that they're always shouting from the back of the room, women actually belong to the kitchen and stuff like that, like you shouldn't dream so big, you're not up for it and stuff like that. And I still remember crying in the toilet one time because I was like so hurt by it.
Oh man.
And I think I also remember like one time one of the guys actually spat on my friend, like physically spat. So I was like, okay, that really angered me a lot and really pushed me into what I'm doing right now. So yeah.
So thank you for sharing your experiences. Actually, we're gonna go to a related topic, which is education inequity. So Riff and Nizana, the Meyer movement offers a digestible guide on the MEB on you guys' Instagram. So could you tell the audience, what is the MEB and what are its most problematic aspects? Any one of you can go first. Okay, Izana can go first.
You want to go first, Izana, or? Okay. I mean, the MEB is something that I don't think anyone actually reads. I know a lot of like people from the education NGOs who talk about it, but never actually read it before. Which is like, okay, fair. It's damn long and it's damn boring. Who wants to read it? But Meyer actually spent like entire month just like separating everything, and everyone reads one part. And the most problematic aspect of the Malaysian education blueprint is its inability to specify their targets and what they want to achieve. Like when they say racial equality and racial equity, they never really specify what does that look like and what are the active steps in achieving those specific roles. So I think if Malaysia is consistently using the Malaysian education blueprint as sort of a guideline to guide their policies and laws that govern education in Malaysia, I would really say that needs reformation as well, because it's really problematic when the guidelines you are following don't specify how you're supposed to execute something. And I think that's really problematic lah. Like, takkan you want an MEB, lepas tu tak specify. Lepas tu you want the whole education system to follow the same thing, like tak masuk akal langsung. It doesn't make any sense, That was my biggest like anger issue with the MEB. It's like you need to specify. Like you want to talk about like gender equity. What does that look like? What are your active steps in making sure that gender equity actually happens in Malaysia? But they never specified. So I think that's the biggest issue lah.
I see. Okay. Izana, do you want to add anything on? Okay, no. Okay.
I think you pretty much said everything. Yeah.
All right. Okay, then we'll move on to a question for Celeste. Your organization, Better Tomorrow, it supports 200, I think, stateless children in school. So can you tell us a little bit more on the root causes of this problem?
Yeah, there are actually many reasons for this, and I can like go on and on about it. But I think I'll like to narrow it down. I'll like talk about the girls more specifically. And one of the most common reason is because of child marriage. And we always hear the phrase child marriage, but actually seeing it in real life actually hits so different. So like before I started my own NGO and stuff like that, during the weekends, I would actively be visiting like the isolated stateless community hidden within like the forest, which was only like 10 minutes away from the industrialized modern CBD, which is crazy to think about because it's only 10 minutes away. And there, almost like more than like half of the girls drop out from school. And when during one of my visits, right, like one of my recent visits, there was this girl in which I was like really close to, and the director of the school told me that she dropped off and she was only 12 and she was getting married and she was pregnant and stuff like that. So actually hearing the fact that a 12-year-old was pregnant and dropping out of school really hits differently than seeing it online and hearing about it. And yeah, so it is also estimated that around, I think, like 15 million girls get married before they turn 18. And so child marriage definitely is a problem. And it is such a big problem in Malaysia, but no one is talking about it. And I read from somewhere that only 2% of child marriages are rejected from the court. And that is far too little. Kids getting married young is also rooted to the ideology that women, they will get married young, and then this cycle just keeps going on and going on. So that's basically the root cause of it: child marriage, definitely, and poverty too. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for illuminating us on the problem. I actually want to ask a really, out there question, and I want you guys to, be imaginative. Just let us know. Since we're on the topic of education, and it's something that everyone is really passionate about here, could you guys share with us, what is your ideal education system? Or, even put it in the context of Malaysia, what specifically would you like to see? What kind of education system would you like for your kids or for yourselves even? So, Izana, could you start?
Yeah. So basically, what I think an ideal education system to me would be to look at a country, for example, that has really good, like the best education system in the world. I think would be Finland, right, Ruski? Wait, is it Finland, right? Correct, right? yeah. So basically, apparently Finland has like the best education system in the world, and it's like very holistic. They don't pressure the students as much, but they seem to have very good, like very high success rate. Like students that seem to be doing very well. So I think the same should be done in Malaysia as well, right? So I think an important aspect that Malaysia should focus on, like an ideal education system, what it would look like to me would be one that doesn't like encourages students to learn, but also doesn't push on them to the point that it affects their mental health. Because I think this is a very mental health is a very like big topic that like most schools like try to not really like brush that topic on, because I think it's pretty evident in the counseling system. If the counseling system is the way that it is, then obviously they don't really like it's clear that they don't really focus on mental health, right? But secondly is also, I think that like mental health also needs to be, in my ideal education system, mental health also needs to be like pushed on, because the current education system isn't really like encouraging students to like learn about mental health as well, right? Because I think a lot of students currently face a lot of anxiety, especially like right now in COVID-19 and like in this pandemic right now that's happening. I'm pretty sure a lot of SPM students are facing a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and I think they don't know how to cope with that. So if in like maybe in our ideal education system, students would be informed properly about what to do, how like, and informed properly about like what to do during these kind of situations. That's one. I think two would also be like another important aspect in like what I want my ideal education system to be, is also to be like encourage critical thinking skills because I think that's super important that students should have to learn to think for themselves, right? And not just like have all of their answers be like given to them,
Regurgitated.
like handed.
Mm.
I think that's like a really huge problem right now because students aren't encouraged to like learn to think for themselves because everything is handed to them, right? And or they're taught to think a certain way. That's what I personally think we shouldn't have that. And I think that students should be encouraged to question authority as well because not all authority is correct. And some teachers in school just don't understand that when we try to question them, it's not like we're trying to threaten them. We also just want to try to understand things better. So they make it seem like a threat, right? And that's not good. I think an ideal education system would encourage students to try to question things, to try to question authority, whether like this action is correct or not, whether we should be learning this or not, and have the input of the students because I think the current education system doesn't really prioritize what the students think. They just focus on making students think this, not like should you like think this, like do you want to think more? Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's just the two main things
Thank
I
you.
think should be in the main. Yeah.
Thank you so much,
So-
Zana. Celeste, what about you?
Yeah, I think like what Izana said, it was spot on. Like education system is so much more than just what's written on the textbook. And the education system is wrong when they're trying to make you memorize everything that you can get off the internet. Why do I have to memorize the name of this king and that king when the internet is available to on my hands? Why shouldn't I prioritize my time onto something that is much more valuable of my time? Because life and the world in general goes beyond the classroom. I'm pretty sure like all like adults say that what you learn today is not going to be applied in the future. So definitely things that go beyond the classroom. And mental health, yes. So I myself am a person with very, very bad mental health. I have anxiety attacks, I have really bad sleep disorder. And when I like was going through this phase of mine, I felt that I was really alone because schools, yeah, we have sex education talk, we have PSHE lessons, we talk about mental health, but they're always like mental health, take care of it or else you're crazy, you're bad, stuff like that. So I felt that I was alone in the process, no one to reach out to, no one to talk to about. So I was really in my dark and alone phase. And so I think like education system definitely needs to change when students feel that way. Students shouldn't feel that going to school is a bad thing. They should be willing to go to school, willing to learn, because education is all about learning new things, not about studying for exams, not about cramping all knowledge you can in one night. It's about learning and exploring different ideas. Yeah.
Thank you, Celeste. Riff, what about you?
I think it's the same as the girls. I really think that's really spot on, right? I think education needs to be empowering, it needs to be inclusive, and it needs to be empathetic. And when I mean empowering, I mean it needs to empower students with the ability to question certain things, to understand things better. It needs to be empathetic so that students are motivated to learn. And if they are facing issues, they have the bravery to sort of reach out for help. And I think inclusiveness is really important too when it comes to a country like Malaysia, where banyak gila race, a lot of there's so much diverse cultures and individuals in Malaysia, right? So I feel like an education system that's inclusive is not only inclusive and is intersectional, but it's also empowering to other individuals outside than just the I'm not going to say it, but yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Being empathetic to all kinds of people. I would even say extending it to, Malaysia. The Malaysian education system has to learn to be more accessible as well to the disabled community. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Let's get back to the questions. So can I, hear from you guys? What are some achievements that you're most proud of in your activism journey, and what are the actionable steps that you can tell aspiring activists on how to achieve the same thing? So let's start with Celeste.
Okay, hi. So I think my proudest moment would have to be, actually starting the journey itself, because it certainly wasn't easy and it took a lot of convincing, self-doubt, and contemplating to finally step out of my comfort zone and explore the sphere of activism itself. From there, it brought many happy moments and more achievements, which would have never happened if I never even stood out like of my comfort zone. So that's definitely one thing that I'm really proud of. So yeah, I'm proud of my 13-year-old self for that. Um, just really blessed that my 13-year-old self are being brave, empowered, and strong enough to try new things. And I just want to make sure that other young girls could be able to feel that way too. Besides, I think the most rewarding thing as an advocate and activist is being able to inspire other people. So, last month I did like a workshop and like how to be an advocate and stuff like that. And there was this like young girl. She was so empowered, and she said that she started her own nonprofit organization from it. And I was immediately so touched. Yeah, I was like, oh, so just knowing the fact that you were able to bring tiny changes and just inspire people every day is just by far the most rewarding part. And in terms of like how other people, just like advice in general, just go for it. You have to find something that you're really passionate about, like college applications aside and everything aside, find something you are passionate about, because then it's so much easier to actually fight for the cause, because it's not something that, even when you're burnt out, you will feel like, I still have to do this because I'm passionate about the cause. It makes the journey so much more easier, so much more fun, and so much more worth it. Yeah.
Thank you, Celeste. Riff, can you go next?
I think I will have to agree with Celeste. Maybe it's because everyone keeps on saying the same thing, but like to me, my proudest moment would probably be how early I started off my activism career. Because nonstop, everyone kept saying, "Oh my God, you're so young." Even you did before we started this, right? You're like, "You're so old," and things like that. I was like, that's probably one of my proudest moments. I like, okay, I'll take it. Starting off young is probably a good thing. But I think if we are looking at actual achievement and things like that, probably with all the work that we do, one is when we stood side by side with students, and a lot of them were echoing the same message. I think that was probably something I'm really proud of, that everyone was, like, oh, this organization is with us. We're not alone in this battle with like the Malaysian government. But I think like secondly is also when like Teach for Malaysia CEO reached out to us. I think that was I was like, Sun Sing, if you're watching this, I'm sorry I ghosted you for 2 weeks, but like that was really like one of my proudest moments when he texted me, and I was like, oh shucks, he wants to have a meeting. So yeah, that's me, I guess.
I see. Thank you for sharing. Actionable steps that you can share to other aspiring activists.
Actionable steps. I think some actionable steps would probably include like, I don't know. I feel like when it comes to activism, right, your approach just needs to be robust, and that just means going for it. You will fail, you will struggle, you will feel sad, but that's kind of a prerequisite to a lot of things. So my only advice is literally, everyone will start asking you multiple questions. Like, oh, like when we started off Maya, everyone was like, oh, how you plan to achieve this? What's your action goals? Blah, 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 right? And we don't have those answers right now. And it's okay to not have answers right now. But what's more important is to have that drive to find those answers, which I would definitely advocate you go for. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you, Rifki. Izana.
I think the biggest achievement that I've made in my experience as like an activist, I don't know, like I don't know myself.
You can call yourself an activist.
Yeah, so basically, like I think like my proudest moment would be like when people from school, people like just random, like people just approaching me, they'll like message me and my friends, like mutuals, they just ask me, they're like, so how did you start Meyer? How, like the same like Celeste, basically, like how did you start Meyer? Like what inspired you? And then they'll actually come to me to advise for like the structure of their organization where to like get resources and whatnot. And I'm like, oh wow, I feel very honored because why would you ask me this? I mean, I mean, it's pretty cool that like, you know, friends and like some friends and like some acquaintances or just like even random people just want to ask me like how, like ask me for advice. And I'm like, I don't think I'm qualified, but like I'm just gonna give you advice anyway. And then I think that's one too is also like same as Rifki is when like students and like the media actually like started to give Maya attention for the press releases that we had, like for example lowering the university fees in the pandemic currently. And then when I saw like so many students were like retweeting that we got like so many likes, I was like, whoa, like this is a lot. Like I didn't expect like such a small idea from like me and Lucy, like just a small discussion would turn out to be something like really, really big, you know. And that was like a super special moment for like me, I guess. It was pretty cool. But some advice I would give to people that want to like, some advice that I would actually give to people would be maybe, you know, don't be scared. Just like earlier, like I said earlier, just don't be scared. Like go ahead straight with it. Like I think you will definitely face some difficulties. You will definitely face some challenges. But I think it's important to like try to face those rather than not doing anything at all. Because like I think it's something that my coach Amrit used to say to me was that it's better to fight the good fight rather than not fight at all. Yeah, and try to take action, you know, because I think to sit silent and when you have the opportunity to be able to fix or have a say in an issue is something that's complacent, you know, when you are able to like, when you're able to fix something, when you're able to do something, but you just don't do it, like, do you not feel any guilt? You should be able to do something, you know? Yeah.
Thank you, Izana, for sharing, and thank you to all of you for the advice. I think it was very inspiring. And you know, Izana, don't undermine yourself. You're doing really important work. You know, be proud of yourself. So, you know, these are all really amazing experiences, and I want to ask you guys, what are some of your biggest learning lessons from activism? You know, outside of organization building. So let's start with Celeste.
Hi. Okay. So, oh my God, activism is definitely a learning process. Like, don't expect to jump on the train and be like amazing at it, because I certainly was not. You know, when I first like spoke in my big conference, it was like in China with like 100 people in my committee, and it was so frightening because I was like really small back then, and I remember like walking towards the podium and I tripped, so it was really embarrassing. I was so scared. And when I talked on the microphone, you could hear that my voice, like I sounded like I really wanted to cry, because deep down, like I really wanted to cry. So it definitely is a learning process. You know, you're going to struggle in the beginning. However, you're going to progressively get better. You know, you can't just be good at it when you start. And till today, I'm still learning new things that I've never known. It says it is definitely something worth fighting for. And I think, like as I mentioned before, I'm definitely a workaholic. I work a lot and I don't prioritize my mental health sometimes. And through this, from my perspective, I eventually learned that, activism taught myself that I should learn to love myself and prioritize myself and put myself first before anything else. Because if I'm physically or mentally ill, I would not be able to actually bring about change, go about leading organizations and doing stuff like that. So it definitely taught me to, one, love myself. Number two, life in general is a learning process. You can't just be good at it. And number three, just don't give up on the fight. Yeah.
Thank you, Celeste. I really like pointing out on sustainable activism. Taking care of yourself. Making sure that you prevent yourself from having activism burnout or compassion fatigue. So yeah, work-life balance. Taking care of yourself so you can take care of other people. Riff, can you go next?
I think the biggest learning lessons I personally got from my journey in activism was probably understanding the world a lot better, and incredibly meta as well. And that can be really hard to think about, and because it gets super depressing. But one thing that I would like to say was that compassion fatigue is a real thing. You just thinking about social issues too that much really suck your kepala, you know. So like I've also been told that when I do activism and when I do work regarding activism, I tend to overdo it in the way that I'll just work on it over and over and over. And I think people at Undi 18 specifically, Kira and Anusha, if you guys are watching this, I know you guys retweeted this, but like if you guys are watching this, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for telling me to not work and keep me away from my burnout, because burning out from activism is a real thing. And it can be disruptive to someone's mental health. So that will be my advice, lah. Just take care of your mental health first. You like what Celeste says. You can't create change if you're not well yourself. So always take care of yourself.
Yes, very good advice. Very important. Izana, can you go next?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna sort of like echo a bit of what Celeste and Ricky said, is that it's important to like take a break, because I think personally for me, I think at one point I was having like too much on my plate. I was having my internship. I was also running my rookie at the same time, and then also doing like a lot of like tired activities. So it was really difficult for me. And at the time, like I think my mental health was at my lowest. So I was having like constant breakdowns. So like I think an important thing to do is to just like take a step back and then just like, tell your colleagues or like tell your group members. So like, I want to take a step back and I want to try to see how I can better myself, so I can take a rest and then I can be more productive and I can like contribute more, right? Because I think if you try to tire yourself out so much in the name of like trying to get more like work done or like trying to like achieve more, I think you're just gonna end up like burning out. And that was sort of what happened to me, which is why currently I'm taking like a 1 month break. And yeah, it's really important for you to like sit back and then reevaluate your goals, and then don't forget to focus on yourself as well, because I think focusing on yourself is important as well. And don't be afraid of taking time off when you need to. If there isn't anything important that needs urgent attention, then definitely do time off for yourself. And also don't forget to have a social life, because I realized that when you do work in activism, you're working so hard to the point like you're just focused on like a certain project that you don't get to see your friends, you don't get to spend time with like your family, until the point like my mom scolded me. Like she was like, "Why are you not home enough? Why are you not talking to me? Why are you always in your room on your laptop?" Right? It's really important to like maintain like your social connections outside of your work life as well. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yes, also very good tips on preventing activism burnout. Okay, so another question I would like to ask you guys is, what kind of social issues do you think aren't talked about enough in the mainstream Malaysian discourse? And following that, what are some organizations that you would recommend the audience in order to support these causes? Let's start with Izana this time.
Okay, so basically, I think I think like a few organizations that I'm just gonna name drop a few organizations because just at the top of my head. I think one is Undi 18. Undi 18 is definitely like the I think me personally, it's like the most well known organization that I know, because like I also used to be with them as well, and they're what got me interested in activism as well. But so is also Teach for Malaysia. So Teach for Malaysia is really good as well. I think they're also offering internships as well. So yeah, I don't know why I'm plugging them right now, but yeah. Another one is also Let's Read Talks as well, because one of the members for Maya as well is one of the co-founders for Let's Read Talks. So basically, they focus on basically like talking about menstruation and also basically gender inequality and sex education. Yeah, so follow Let's Read Talks. And I think the first one that is not really talked about, but I would like to bring out, is called Project Mastery. So basically, Project Mastery is a NGO that is based in Sarawak, and they talk about period poverty. So I think period poverty is not fully talked about enough. Yeah, that's one of the things I want to say, is period poverty is also not talked about enough in the current scene of activism.
Maybe
I
you
think
could explain to the audience what period poverty is.
yeah. Okay. So poverty basically, to my understanding, period poverty is basically the lack of knowledge when it comes to menstruation, but also the lack of education, I would say, how to, and also like the lack of accessibility. Yeah, basically the lack of accessibility to knowledge about menstruation. For example, like not having enough feminine hygiene products. That's an example of like period poverty. But also secondly, it's not knowing how to. It's also like knowing how to also understanding why people, like, for example, I think a topic that I learned about period poverty was the reason why people get the reason why people in B40 families get pregnant so much is because they don't want to experience menstruation, because apparently it's very expensive to have to buy menstrual products, right? And I agree, it's very expensive. So yeah, that's like an example of an issue that's happening in period poverty. So yeah, that's just what I'm gonna say.
Thank you for sharing, Zana. Riff, why don't you go next?
I think one of the issues I feel aren't talked about enough is, I think, firstly, intersectionality. I don't think our current discussions really highlight the importance of overlapping social issues and what that means for certain individuals from certain marginalized groups. So I feel like, and I can't really recommend any pages on this as well, because I don't know any pages. I just don't know who. But again, I would say Mrs. Solidarity, because if I'm not mistaken, the first week I was with them, I think it was Sharon or Sarah that was just going on and on about intersectionality. I was like, period. Yeah. So I think Mrs. Solidarity, on top of that, Missy Bawang as well, just came out. It's just biased, who knows, but plug. Second thing is that I would definitely say, LGBT issues, but not external ones, not like, is it okay to be gay or is it not okay to be gay, but more of what happens within the LGBT community that we don't talk about. What is the sort of toxicity that exists there? Which I feel really, really warrants a lot of discussion, a lot of attention as well.
Yeah. Very underdeveloped discourse in Malaysia, for sure.
Exactly. So I can't recommend any pages as well, because I don't know any pages. But if you want to start a page, go for it. You have my support. You have Sharon's support. Go for it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for plugging Mrs. Solidarity. And also, I have organizations to share in relation to the LGBTQ plus issue. Queer Lapis is a very good page for the queer community and all their allies as well. I also know GSA Kota Kinabalu. Celeste might know. Okay, so let's let Celeste plug GSA Kota Kinabalu.
I'm not really sure much about it, but I do follow them on Instagram. So I think they're based in KK. But that's all I know. Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to share as well what you think are some underdeveloped Malaysian discourses.
I think definitely periods, period poverty, definitely. I don't care what the reason is but period poverty is still such a big issue. What I don't understand is, why is period poverty not being addressed? Why do I have to whisper even when I have to say the word period? Why do I have to feel ashamed for staining myself in classrooms? Why is period pads, period products like pads, tampons, and the cups a menstrual luxurious product? When you go to the toilet, there are free available toilet paper for you. When you go university, colleges provide free condoms. But what do they not provide? They don't provide menstrual hygiene products, which is essential. Why is it called luxurious when it is a fundamental right? It isn't a woman problem. It is a human right, because we should feel clean. We should have access to these things. We did not, the moment we come into born into this earth, we weren't given an option whether we wanted to menstruate or not. It was just forced upon us. I wouldn't say forced upon us, but we didn't have an option, and half of our population is bound to go through menstruating. So why is period products a luxurious product. It should be given, it should be provided, it should be a right. And yeah, I think for me that's one of the most like issue that's not even talked about because of how many taboos around there, how many taboos and stigmas around period itself. And I think like I've talked with one of the homeless women, and she said that because she couldn't afford for pads, she used like her own clothes and stuffed it in, either that or tissue paper, which is incredibly unhygienic and very dangerous too. So yeah. I think like an account, I'm not really sure about in relations to Malaysia, but internationally, Period is a good one. It's run by my amazing friend Nadia Okamoto, so definitely check it out. Yeah.
Thank you for the plugging. I think after the talk, I'll get the whole list of recommended organizations from you guys, and then we can plug it through all of our platforms as well, to signal boost all of these causes. Okay, so great. I'm kind of approaching the last question already. So, okay, second last question. How does someone get involved? I know you guys have talked a lot about, just starting, but just starting in of itself can be a very abstract concept, So can you tell us some actionable steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, that somebody, who's listening in today can possibly take to contribute to a movement, start one themselves, or, just make themselves heard? Let's start with Riff.
Oh, all right, cool. I think, okay, so like if we're talking about very like constructive actions, how to start NGO, right? My suggestion would be the first step is really thinking about the cause you want to fight for and think of it entirely. I mean, you think of all the nuances, all the overlapping variants and things like that. So you can really have a better understanding of what you're trying to fight for. And this does involve a lot of research as well. Second step would probably decide whether you can do this. I mean, you can found a movement on your own, or do you need the support of other individuals that you trust? So for me, I knew that I trusted Izana because I've been with her for like, I don't know, since like primary school, whatever crap, right? But it's been damn long. So I trusted enough to do this with me, and we had that conversation together. So finding the right people to start it off with is very important. Third step is finding volunteers, right? So I would just suggest opening up Google Forms and opening up applications. People will definitely be interested. And from there, you can sort of decide what is the best organizational structure that will work for you, and what sort of content or what sort of work do you want to do to execute your vision, I guess, for activism in Malaysia. But what's really important is for everyone to understand that a lot of people will doubt you, and a lot of people will also keep on asking you the same bloody questions that you don't have answers to, and that's okay. So not having answers is not an issue, because one, we are a youth organization, but two, we just started. So not having answers is not a bad thing. In fact, it's something that should motivate you to find those answers. And over time, you will find those answers. Just don't be so bummed out that you can't answer people immediately. The last thing is that if you are going to be very professional, create contact cards, because when you go for meetings, everyone's going to pass them around except for you. And you'll be like, oh, you're malunya. But yes.
Okay, when established enough, they can make contact cards. Okay, thank you for that. Celeste, why don't you share as well?
Yeah, okay, so I don't know like what the hell I was thinking when I was 13, I was using crayons, for God's sake. So definitely it was such a ride, but I think like there are lots of different steps into doing this. Number one, I would say research. Do your research properly. You really want to find a field in activism because it's so broad. There's there's like lots of different aspects that you can go into. There's like 17 SDGs, so I would certainly find for one SDG that you are committed and passionate about and pour in like your energy in there, and then educate yourself on that topic, because you want to know a lot about that topic so that you are able to go further in it. And I think like one thing I did when I started was talk to lots of experienced people. Instagram is a great platform to connect with lots of different people from all over the world. So I, just talk to lots of different people who start their own NGO, people who are like activists, ask them how they did it, what and how how you should start, and then start a tackle plan, and then another big thing is have good role models and mentors, people you can specifically talk to. That's so important. My teachers were always there by my side telling me what steps I should take next. Like sometimes I would be so lost. They would always be guiding me throughout the steps, even though they weren't like activists or stuff like that. But just having a mentor itself is really sufficient. And I think this one thing I did was probably the most effective one: cold emailing. It works a lot. So finding starting your own NGO, you need funding and you need money. Big sales and all those things definitely does provide you money, but to a certain extent. So, people are like, maybe you should try reach out to investors and people who would fund your project. And that's what I started to do, But do you know that cold emailing gets you a lot of rejections? And I went through a lot of rejections, but do you know that within those rejections, someone is bound to invest in your idea. Someone is bound to support you. Someone is bound to pour in money for you to go on with your idea. And so, I would also like schedule in my calendar, like email this person back, constantly email, like just push for it. It's going to be annoying, but if you get what you want, just think of how many people you can affect and impact. So cold emailing is definitely the thing to go, highlight it. Yeah.
Thank you. Also, just in case anyone doesn't really know what SDGs is, that Celeste mentioned, is actually Sustainable Development Goals that were listed out by the UN. So you guys can go ahead and Google that. They list out, some goals that would, if emulated and realized, would have an ideal world. So you guys can go and check that out. Izana, your turn.
Yeah. So the one thing I think is super important when starting off like your own organization or just getting involved in like activism in general is to have discussions, right? Because I think it's really important to, when you start off, you always need to have the opinion of others, and you also, I mean, yeah, you just like sort of need to have like a discussion with other people about what they think about what your goals are, right? And because it can really help diversify what you're trying to achieve, and or what your goal should be. But secondly, is also to know, research or like ask around what tools you can utilize in order to help your organization, right? For example, I didn't know before this, but I actually attended a webinar that's like, I think by Dear Her, if I'm not mistaken. And the speaker there actually told me that you can actually have like free, I didn't know this before I got into like Senate 18 either, was that you can actually have like free Canva accounts as an NGO, and you can also like have like, I think, access to like, you can have free Google Suite accounts as well. So utilizing those kind of tools can really, really help in your content creation and help like your organization as a whole. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Very good advice in terms of managing an organization and helping to expand it. Okay, so now we're on our last question. Okay, so what are some parting words that you can give to the aspiring activists amongst our audience? And what would be your call to action for the audience today? Let's start with Celeste.
Okay, I'll say this like one last time today, but just go for it, like never be afraid of the outcome, just trust the process. As I mentioned last time, it's always a learning process. Don't expect to be perfect when you just started, no one's perfect, if I'm being honest, but you wouldn't want to look back and end up regretting it, because if not you, who else is going to speak up, And one very important thing, I always say this, but to always know your why, like know why you are fighting for this issue. Like once you find something that you're passionate about, know why you are passionate about it, write it down. So whenever you're burnt out, you look at that why and you feel a burst of energy, you suddenly feel like you're ready to take on the world. You're, just ready. Yeah, I can't stress enough how important your why is, find something you're really passionate about. Yeah, and also remember that your voice is so powerful. You may think that I'm an individual, it doesn't matter because there are like 7 billion people in this world. So, but no, because you're not born in this earth just to sit still and look pretty. You're born to be powerful. You were born to use your voice. So use your voice, because your voice is such an amazing thing given to you, and one person's voice can make such a big difference. So if one person's voice makes such a big difference, can you imagine what a community of people's voice would make? So yeah, definitely use your voice.
Thank you, Celeste. That was really lovely. Izana, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I think what if you're ever gonna start your own organization or like get involved in activism, I will say that it's something that's very scary and super daunting. And I have to admit, I'm actually still very, very scared. But it's better for you to like, have someone there with you if you're too scared as well. Like you can have like really good like team members to help back you up, or like a really good partner like Ricky to like back you up and like help aid you like along the way, or like just hold your hand along the way, so like you will become like a lot better. But secondly, is also Celeste is right. Like your voice is very, very powerful, especially as a youth. I know that youth get undermined a lot, especially in Malaysia, because of the brown culture in our country currently. But you have to just trust yourself and know that your voice has worth, and people will definitely try to say something, and people will definitely try to say something. People will definitely try to undermine you, but you just have to trust yourself and are confident in what you're trying to say and confident in the message that you're trying to send across, because know that in the end that what you're trying to do is you're trying to help people and you're trying to do something good. So there's no point trying to look at people who are trying to undermine you. And it's good to accept the fear a bit, like the fear that you have when you're in like activism. Yeah.
Yes, that's very important, very powerful. Yeah, Riff, your turn.
My parting words would probably just be the same as those two. I think, echoing what everyone said, the power of someone's voice, especially as a youth in Malaysia or anywhere else in the world, really, is extremely powerful. Inherently, I believe that all of us are community builders. We are destined for a lot of great things, and that requires a lot of work. And a lot of those work involves dismantling current systems of oppression. A lot of those works include deconstructing all the bad things that the generation before us has uplifted and built. Because not everything was good. But more importantly, I think when you do activism, you really need to start recognizing that you're not alone, and that when you feel something for a cause, there are a lot of other people that will feel the same way. And if I was to give very honest advice, I would say that never shut up. Just keep talking, because activism and the best kinds of activism are ones that are vocal, are ones that are robust. And oftentimes, these two paired together will annoy a lot of politicians and motivate a lot of people to stand with you as well. And yeah, that's my advice.
Okay, thank you so much for those very powerful messages from all three of you. I think we can really chalk this up to, the fact that all work under activism is good work. It's all very important. And also, not being scared of changing traditions, because that's really part and parcel of activism. As Riff said, deconstructing what the older generation says left behind for us. I also really like, Izana talking about having discussions. Yes, activism is very daunting. So the best, most approachable way to go about it is just finding like-minded people. And then you're not going to feel so alone, because there are other people to support your cause, right? So, okay, so I think that there are a few people amongst the audience who would really want to join your causes upon hearing them. So maybe, you guys can kind of give an outlet to the audience, explain how they can join your movements as well. Celeste, starting, you can start first.
Okay, so basically with like my own NGO, I guess like it's really open to people residing in KK areas. However, we are hoping that we can, open it to Malaysia, like all over Malaysia, open to Malaysian residents, because It is like a really big task, but we are hoping that we can do that. But if you are interested in gender equality, feel free to always like start your own girl up club, because that one thing I don't regret was starting my own girl up club. They provide you with resources. So if you're unsure of how you can go into the world of activism, by starting your own girl up club, they give you lots of resources, provide you with lots of support and guidance, so that you're never alone in this process. You're always being guided by the senior members, and you can always through starting your own girl up club, you can connect with lots of other girls around the world and engage in conversations that you never would have in your normal life. So definitely starting your own girl up club is my go-to advice for people who are interested in going into gender equality. Yeah, and it's open for any genders, not just girls. Yeah.
Thank you. Izana and Rif on the Maya movement.
Thoughts, Izana? I mean, we sort of talked about like opening back Meyer and reconstructing how we do everything. I don't know about you, Izana, but I feel like if you want to join us, just DM us, and we'll induct you in. Because I mean, if you really want to do activism, right, and if you believe that we are an outlet for you, go for it. We'll give you the We'll give you the outlet, man. Like really.
Thank you. So I think I'll also, in Solidarity, will also be including all of the social media pages. Celeste has several, so we'll be plugging that as well. And we'll also be plugging their personal accounts, so feel free to follow and reach out to them if you guys want any advice or have any further questions. So we're going to officially wrap this up now. Some last words from me as well is just that, you guys have given very inspiring insight, and I think very motivational as well. Talking about how to start with your advocacy journey, how to sustain it in a way that takes care of yourself, that's empathetic to yourself, and make sure that it's long lasting. And also, keeping in mind that there is no end goal to activism. It is an initiative that's really driven by your own drive, that's driven by your community around you. It's not something that you're alone in. And it's also very important to constantly be listening and relating to the people who are actually affected by the problem. So thank you so much for your time today. And thank you so much to the audience as well.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
We love you, Sharon.
Thank you so much. I think we're going to end the meeting now. So good night, everyone. I hope that this was helpful for everyone. And thank you so much for the speakers as well. So goodbye. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.